Hi, I'm Dee, also known as Pixel Quilts on social media, and I'm here to give you a rundown on my project, which is 12 months of 12 inspirational women that I've trying to make one quilt a month of a woman that has inspired me, and then I gift that quilt to them. The very first woman I chose for January was a lady called Ashley Longshaw, and she is an artist. The quilt I made is 96 inches by 72 inches and has just under 2,500 pieces in 10 different colours. She's known as the modern day Andy Warhol, and her art is just vibrant, bright, and beautiful. She seems to be one of these unique people that not only has the ability to produce her own beautiful works of art, also inspire others to do exactly the same. And that's exactly what I did. So I created the quilt of her, and then I was able to send it to her. And she wrote back to me and she loves it. She absolutely loves it. February is a lady called Laura Balbin, who I know she's not terribly well known over here. She's on social media under the name of Knee Deep in Life. So her quilt was just over 2,000 pieces. It was 72 by 96 inches again and had 9 colours in it. Laura is just real and funny and honest. And as someone who has struggled with depression, the way she faces depression and talks about her struggles, I found really inspiring. The other thing she does is she's hilarious, and she just kind of demonstrates reality versus the picture perfect life which we often see on Instagram. So yes, she was February. Again, I sent her the quilt and got a lovely thank you back. So that's Laura. March is a face that I'm sure many of you recognise. March is Brene Brown. She is made up of 2,700 pieces and is also 72 by 96. She has 10 different colours in her, but I went with a more muted and brown toned palette for her. Her first TEDx talk, I think, was about 12 years ago, which really kind of exploded her onto the scene. Really impacted me. And so I've always followed and read everything she's ever put out. And she's just given me a deeper level of insight, I think, into myself. I packaged the quilt up and managed to get it to her, and I'm assured that she loves it. That's Brene for March. So even though this project during 2022 was supposed to be exclusively women, the war in Ukraine broke out in February, and I knew that I wanted to do something. So I had the idea to come up with a quilt of Volodymyr Zelensky, and I raffled him off for UNICEF Ukraine. So this version, this is the second Zelensky quilt I've done. He's actually unbound and unfinished at the moment because I only just finished quilting him a couple of weeks ago. So he has like just over 1,600 pieces. He's 72 by 54 inches and 9 different shades of between black and white. So 9 different shades of grey. In my defense of this year of women, I think he is the man of 2022. And I wanted to not only kind of mark this historically with a quilt of him for me to keep, but also kind of honour one of the bravest presidents I've ever seen, and highlight the Ukrainian plight as well. May, for me, is Martha Beck. Martha is an author, and she is made up of 1,500 pieces in 12 different colours. She is also a 72 by 54 inch quilt. I had not heard of Martha Beck before 2022, but anytime I'm sewing, I will listen to podcasts and I will listen to audiobooks. And one name that kept coming up was hers. So I just kept feeling a nudge to find out about her. So I immediately went and bought her book on audiobook. And then I kept finding myself every kind of 5 minutes stopping it so that I could go onto Facebook and tell my friends and family, Martha Beck's just said this. Isn't that insightful? And since reading that one book, I now follow her on social media, and she does the cutest podcasts. And she just seems like such a beautiful, genuine person. So I made the quilt for her, and then I sent it to her. So she has it. I have been assured that she loves it. So that's me. I'd like to introduce you to Miss June. This is our Queen, Queen Elizabeth II. I say our Queen because you might have noticed I have an accent. I am a Brit and I now live in Oklahoma. And I think that's part of the reason that I really wanted to do this quilt, that I was homesick. And the Jubilee was coming up and I knew I wasn't going to be able to go home and celebrate with all my friends and family. In April, when the local media came over to film my fundraiser for UNICEF using the Zelensky quilt, they all saw this quilt in progress and loved the idea that not only was I making this quilt, but then I was going to send it to the Queen. So then they all wanted to come back and film, which they did in June. This one, she's got about 2,700 pieces. She uses 13 colours and she's 54 by 72. This is my version. The original has been sent to Buckingham Palace, so I'll talk about the original. The original has about 2,500 beads hand sewn on the crown and the tiara. So when I thought I was being super clever, and so I finished the quilt back in May, and I jumped on the Palace's website, Buckingham Palace's website, because I was like, I need an address to send this to the Queen. And so on the website, in no uncertain terms, it says the Queen does not accept unsolicited gifts. So that broke my heart a little, but I thought, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to write to her. This is for her Jubilee. This is to say thank you. So I wrote her a letter, and I included in the letter pictures of the quilt I'd made her. And I went ahead and I sent it to Buckingham Palace. The Platinum Jubilee happened June 2nd to June 6th. I enjoyed it. I decorated my house. I flew the flag. I think I represented Britain well. And then at the beginning of July, I got a letter in my mailbox. And as soon as I saw that crest, I knew this is from Buckingham Palace. And so when I opened the letter, the first thing I saw was the card. And I think this is the card that she has had done. This is like the official card to mark the Jubilee. And then also with the card was a letter. Dear Mrs. Bushrod, I'm writing to thank you for your recent letter to the Queen, with which you enclosed photographs of the splendid quilt you have made to commemorate Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee. It was kind of you to suggest you would like to send your quilt as a gift to the Queen. Can I advise you that this should be sent through Royal Mail Post to Her Majesty at Buckingham Palace? The Queen was most grateful for your message of congratulations and for your kind words, and I am to thank you for your thought for Her Majesty at this time. Yours sincerely, Mary Morrison, Lady in Waiting. I start crying and I realise that my quilt is going to go to the Queen and that I have a letter in my hands from the Queen's Lady in Waiting. So that started a journey which only finished a few weeks ago, honestly. I packaged it up. I sent it to my mum back in my hometown. While this has started happening and the Queen's quilt is doing its rounds, I'm realizing, oh my gosh, this is quite a big deal. I want a copy of this quilt for my family to keep. And so this is where this quilt comes in. She's an exact replica of the quilt that went to the Queen. But as for the Queen's version, that was boxed up and sent to the palace on a Monday, and it was supposed to get to the palace on a Thursday. And that ended up being the day that the Queen died. So as you can imagine, we were heartbroken. The quilt didn't actually arrive until the Friday, and so I know she never had a chance to ever see it. It's been a journey working through that. I think I finally kind of come to the realization that maybe this, everything is happening just as it should. And maybe this will bring some comfort to her family. So the quilt is at Buckingham Palace. I don't know what will happen to it. And I don't know that I will ever know what will happen to it. And I'm okay with that. Actually, probably out of all the quilts I've ever made, this has got to be my favorite. July is Miss Frida Kahlo. I first discovered Frida's artwork in 2006 and it intrigued me enough to go and research her and see what she was all about because she seemed so different, and that started a love of Frida Kahlo for me. I love that Frida would challenge the perceptions of femininity with her facial hair and her unibrow. Everything about her paintings just fascinated me. So when I came to make her, I knew I wanted to do something a bit different on this pixel quilt and make it 3D and make the flowers really a big visual part of the image. And that definitely started a process that was incredibly frustrating and took me like a week. I had an image in my head of how I wanted this quilt to look, but then translating that into something that looked good was really hard. I ended up deciding, okay, I've got to make the flowers, and the way I ended up making them was to go buy flammable materials, cut each petal out, and then singe in each petal and hand sewing them on. As a result, the process of actually just doing the flowers alone, like I said, I probably spent a week on, which translated is probably 35 hours just doing that part. So she has almost 1,500 pieces in her. There's 12 different shades of grey and one pop of pink. 54 by 72 inches. And I am still looking for a home for her. I'm trying to find somewhere that honors her legacy. It was by sheer coincidence that some of her work ended up in our local museum, the Philbrook Museum in Tulsa. And so they invited me along to come and bring the quilt and take some photos with some of her exhibits, which was beautiful. August is Miss Maya Angelou. She has over 2,600 pieces. She's a big one. She's 96 by 74. 12 different shades of grey, but also in addition, there is a little pop of colour in there with the log cabins. Maya was my first time trying to do something other than a completely plain background. I really kind of pushed myself with this quilt, and I love the log cabin effect. My mum tells me it looks almost 3D. Maya is totally one of my favorites. Again, I'm looking for somewhere to send her. So I've reached out to a museum and I'm waiting to hear back. And then in the meantime, Maya is the third quilt this year that I have gone ahead and made twice. The other version of Maya that I have done, I applied the concept of the log cabin and I did every single block in this quilt as a log cabin. From the outside, you can't really tell there's much of a difference, but it's only when you get up close you can see that actually every element of this quilt has log cabins through it. September is a lady called Selena Myers. I had a little competition on my social media and I asked people to nominate someone who inspired them. So what creator inspires you on social media? And then I picked one at random, and the random one was a lady called Selena Myers. Her account is Selena Spooky Boo. The quilt was just over 2,000 pieces. It was like 2,063 pieces. I used 11 different colors and it's 54 by 72. She is so funny, so lovely. Her account started off by showing her sleepwalking escapades, which are hilarious. She has like over 25 million followers now on TikTok, and she seems so sweet and lovely. So I actually only just boxed up her quilt 3 days ago and sent it to her. So her quilt is still en route at the moment. October, I haven't started yet, and actually October as a quilt has the most pieces I've ever done, so I really need to start it. October is going to be Oprah. The pattern I've come up with, she's got nearly 3,000 pieces. It's really detailed, so I know it's going to take me weeks and weeks. I really need to get it started. She is going to be 54 inches by 72 inches. There's 10 different colors in her, but as of yet, I have a pile of fabric that I'm waiting to cut and I need to get going. So November has been planned, by which I mean I think I know the image I'm going to use. I just know that November for me is going to be Adele. Adele is a British singer. She is the only person that recently my family said if you could see one person in concert, who would it be? And I picked Adele. So I am making her in the month that I'm going to see her. I mean, I will do my hardest to try and reach out and see if there's any way I can give it to her in person. You'll have to follow me on social media and see what happens there. And finally, December, my last month. I don't know. There's a few ladies that I would like to honor. Obviously, I can only pick one now because I will only have 1 month left. So it's to be decided. I'll let you know. So that's it. I document the good, the bad, and the ugly on Instagram and TikTok mainly. So if you want to follow along, just look me up, Pixel Quilts, and you can come on this crazy journey with me. Thank you for being here and watching me and seeing my journey to date. Thank you.